Welcome to the Blue Coat computer-based training module, ProxySG Troubleshooting Topics, Critical Resource Monitoring using SNMP. This course covers the following topics: an overview of Simple Network Management Protocol, or SNMP, a description of the key performance metrics on the ProxySG that are critical to watch, and the recommended approach, including the minimum set of key resources that should be monitored with SNMP. SNMP is an Internet standard protocol for collecting and organizing information about managed devices on IP networks and for modifying that information to change device behavior. The Blue Coat ProxySG provides administrators the benefits of a proxy appliance that offers specific SNMP elements that allow close resource monitoring for day-to-day informational use. The ProxySG also provides information that allows users to prioritize network needs and to focus and allocate resources to maximize reliability. A few key resource dimensions establish the health and performance characteristics of the ProxySG. Blue Coat recommends that the following metrics be monitored: CPU utilization, connection counts, reflecting resources like client-server worker counts, memory pressure, and network throughput. Note that because most proxies in steady state should have disks that are close to full, monitoring disk usage as a metric is not helpful. Before critical resource monitoring can be employed to identify trends and patterns and to determine thresholds, the administrator must know what is considered normal for their environment. A period of monitoring is required to establish a profile of the resource levels in the given installation. To eliminate spikes while coming up with the baseline, it is usually better to sample values over sufficiently long time intervals and compute the average over the corresponding time interval. The baseline can then be used to observe and identify any changes in resource utilization. Once the baseline value has been established for each of the resource parameters, you can use the ProxySG SNMP monitoring functionality to monitor a single appliance and observe how resource loaded it is at that time, monitor a single appliance and observe how resource loaded it has been over the last number of minutes, hours, or days, and be notified when a specific appliance's resource reaches some threshold for a significant interval. It is also important for the administrator to understand at what period of the day the highest utilization of the appliance occurs. Measure the resource metrics within a single day, 24-hour period, to determine utilization during peak load. Gathering these metrics over successive 24-hour time periods is necessary to determine when the peak load occurs and to track whether there is sufficient resource headroom to avoid service degradation. A more complex baseline might be the previous week's actual pattern of CPU utilization on a particular proxy, often called a CPU utilization profile. The latter would be more accurate because the utilization pattern could be significantly different from one day of the week to another. In cases where the ProxySG has been upgraded to a new release of SGOS, including minor releases, Blue Coat recommends that a new baseline profile be established to accommodate for differences in runtime behavior caused by software changes in each release. This metric indicates the level of CPU utilization at a given point in time. A persistently high level of CPU utilization affords less headroom when large spikes of activity occur. Any excursion that exceeds 80% and lasts longer than 120 seconds results in an alarm. Each active connection from the ProxySG to an HTTP client or server has an associated HTTP worker thread. Typically, the majority of connections are associated with HTTP client workers, HTTP server workers, and system-generated retrieval workers. Connection counts roughly indicate the sum of threads that are actively processing traffic from clients to servers. If the number of open connections exceeds the maximum number of allowed HTTP workers, it suggests that the ProxySG appliance is not able to keep up with its current HTTP client request load. When memory resources on the ProxySG become scarce, the system tries to compensate by delaying the processing of new requests or delaying memory allocation for some existing requests until other requests have a chance to complete and free their associated resources. The ProxySG uses a mechanism known as memory regulation. Entering memory regulation results in degraded response time and generally indicates that the system is unable to keep up with its current request load. Typically, the ProxySG will use as much memory as possible to maximize system performance. However, all the memory consumed is not essential to maintain the operation of the appliance, meaning it can be redistributed to other tasks as needed. Memory pressure is a measure of this reserve memory. A system with low memory pressure has high availability of reassignable memory. Monitoring the rate at which the traffic, number of input and output bytes, over a particular interface is approaching the maximum bandwidth supported by that interface allows the administrator to determine when the bandwidth capacity of an interface will be exceeded. SNMP traps on the ProxySG send a notification to the server when appropriate conditions are met. Some examples are shown in this slide, which include authentication failures, attacks, disk issues, state changes, and policy triggers. The recommended starting values can be used as threshold settings for alerts. Each individual administrator may want to adjust as appropriate for their own environments. CPU: critical, 95% for 120 seconds. Warning: 80% for 120 seconds. Memory pressure: critical, 95% over 120 seconds. Warning: 90% over 120 seconds. All interfaces: critical, 90% over 120 seconds. Warning: 60% over 120 seconds. And connections: critical, 90% of the maximum for that platform for 120 seconds, and warning, 80% of the maximum for that platform for 120 seconds. Thank you for watching. This concludes the computer-based training ProxySG Troubleshooting Topics, Critical Resource Monitoring using SNMP. For more information, visit the following Blue Coat resources: the knowledge base available at bto.bluecoat.com, and the customer discussion forums available at forums.bluecoat.com. For additional questions or comments regarding this training module, contact us at training.books@bluecoat.com.